Good evening, welcome to ITV News. This is Tuesday night's calendar.
Hello, here are tonight's main stories.
Not on call, junior doctors take to the picket line in what's been described as the biggest walkout in NHS history.
In August, I'll be working as a doctor for 5 years, and my salary for the job I'm intending to take in August is £19 an hour, and that's 5 years out of medical school, 5 years of doing the job.
Murder charge. A 12-year-old boy makes another court appearance following the death of a woman in Sheffield.
Our fears for the future of the planet is causing climate change anxiety among young people.
And in pole position, we catch up with a teenager from Sheffield, tipped as a rising star of the motorsport world.
I train 4 times a week roughly, if I'm racing at the weekends, if not more. Try and stay as fit as I can be in peak fitness all the time.
Hello, thanks for joining us. First, if you've been anywhere near a hospital in our region today, well, you'll know that a 4-day strike by junior doctors began nearly 12 hours ago.
Yes, it's been heralded as the most disruptive walkout in NHS history, with around 350,000 cancelled appointments across the country, including operations. The most junior doctors say they're paid £14 per hour and want a 35% pay rise, which the government says is unreasonable.
In Rotherham, doctors from the British Medical Association mounted picket lines from 7 this morning. Martin Fisher reports.
Back on the picket lines for the second time in as many months, junior doctors determined to improve their pay. They want to see a 35% increase, claiming salaries have fallen behind for years.
In August, I'll be working as a doctor for 5 years, and my salary for the job I'm intending to take in August is £19 an hour, and that's 5 years out of medical school, 5 years of doing the job. And what we're asking for is for the people on £14 an hour to have their salary increased to £19. That's a £5 extra. It's not that much money in the grand scheme of things.
But the government has branded their demands as unreasonable and says this second wave of strikes, like the one last month, is incredibly disruptive, especially as hospitals are still dealing with a backlog of operations from the pandemic.
A demand of 35%, which would involve some junior doctors receiving over £20,000 more in terms of their basic pay, is not reasonable to your viewers, to those who have to balance the wider issues of the economy and getting inflation down, alongside recognising the very real pressures that the NHS and junior doctors have been under, not least from the pandemic.
Contingency measures have been put in place, and the British Medical Association said there were plans to pull doctors off picket lines if lives were in immediate danger. Now, during the last junior doctor strike last month, 175,000 appointments or operations were cancelled. On each of the 3 strike days, up to 30,000 staff were absent. But those figures look to be surpassed by this strike, with an estimated 350,000 appointments or operations cancelled.
We'll be kind of prioritising patients who are awaiting kind of cancer treatments and surgery there. And ensuring those people who really do need the care are getting the care during a time there will be some disruption to our services.
Across South Yorkshire and more pickets outside Sheffield's Hallamshire Hospital. For many here, the industrial action isn't just about pay.
If you ask most junior doctors here, what we'd really like to ask for is better working conditions, more say over our training, and better resources, better staffed service for our patients.
We're being overworked, not able to take enough breaks, not able to look after one patient properly. Then how are we going to be able to look after the whole NHS? We're doing this to save the NHS, actually.
The strike is set to last another 3 days. Signs of a resolution looking as far away as ever in this increasingly bitter dispute. Martin Fisher, ITV News.
Well, Lisa Adlam joins us in the studio with more on this. Now, you know, Lisa, we've heard there what the doctors have got to say for themselves, but of course it's going to be difficult for hospitals to keep themselves open over the next few days. What have they had to say?
Well, yes, it is a tough job to keep everything running, and all the trusts we've been in touch with in our region are pretty much saying the same thing, that all these walkouts will have a significant impact. People can expect major disruption. Leeds Teaching Hospitals Trust, for example, have pointed out that this comes at the same time as many staff had already booked annual leave for the Easter holidays. Now, nationally, it's estimated that up to 350,000 appointments will be cancelled during the course of the week. We haven't had the breakdown of that number for our region yet, but the Trust in Leeds, again, telling us those statistics will be provided to NHS England, who will then publish them in due course. But trusts like York and Scarborough, for example, they say if a cancellation does apply to you, then you will have been contacted. If you've not been contacted, then you should keep that appointment as planned. Well, we were at Pinderfields Hospital in Wakefield last week. We were there while they prepared for the bank holiday weekend and then these 4 subsequent days of industrial action. Their message to patients really has been echoed by all the trusts, and this is what they had to say.
Really what we're asking people to do is to think before they come. So if you have an urgent care need or you're not sure what to do, NHS 111 can help you. They can book you into a GP appointment. They can tell you that your pharmacist can support you. And if you need an emergency, they can help you access an emergency department. But 111 will help and guide people if they don't know what to do.
And it is important also to point out here that all trusts have said that any patient who is in need of urgent or emergency medical care in a life-threatening case should still call 999 to get that help that they need.
OK, Lisa, important information for those needing a hospital over the next few days. Thank you very much indeed.
Yeah, good to hear. Thanks, Lisa. Well, if you've been affected by the strike action today, or maybe you've had an appointment or operation cancelled for the coming days, well, we'd love to hear from you. Do get in touch with us. You can email at calendar@itv.com. That's calendar@itv.com.
Next tonight, one of the youngest people to be accused of murder in Britain in decades has faced his second court appearance in Sheffield.
The 12-year-old is alleged to have killed 60-year-old Marcia Grant in the Green Hill area of the city last week.
The child appeared before the city's youth court at the weekend. Today, he was brought to Sheffield Crown Court, where a provisional trial date has been set. Adam Fowler was there.
The hearing today lasted only 20 minutes. The judge, prosecution and defence all wore normal clothes instead of their usual formal robes. The 12-year-old boy appeared in the dock in a brown tracksuit and spoke only to confirm his name and that he understood what was being said to him in court. He's charged with murder following the death of 60-year-old Marcia Grant in Greenhill in Sheffield last week, who died after being run over. Her family have since described their enormous loss, saying she was a warm, loving and dedicated wife, mother, grandmother, sister, friend and pillar of the community. The 12-year-old boy, who's also charged with possession of a bladed article, was told his case had to be prioritised because of his age. The Recorder of Sheffield, Judge Jeremy Richardson KC, set a provisional trial date of August the 14th. The 12-year-old has been remanded into secure youth detention accommodation until then. Adam Fowler, ITV News, Sheffield Crown Court.
OK, let's get some more news from around the region now. 4 men have been arrested on suspicion of murder after an 18-year-old was stabbed and killed in Leeds. Jamie Mear was attacked at the junction of Hall Lane and Brentwood Terrace in Armley at the end of March. He died in hospital. Jamie and a 16-year-old who was also injured had been travelling in a taxi when the attack happened. Police have now arrested 4 men aged 18, 19, 24 and 30. They've all been released on bail.
Police have launched an investigation after a woman was raped by 2 men in Barnsley town centre shortly before midnight on Sunday. The woman in her 20s was walking along Stocks Lane away from Summer Lane when she was attacked by the 2 men. One is described as black with either a bald or shaved head, and the other is described as mixed race and in his late 20s. One of the attackers also had a distinctive neck tattoo of a skull with fire or blood on it. Police are appealing for anyone who may have information to come forward.
A walker has died after slipping from a path in the Peak District. A group of ramblers were making their way off a hill at Speedwell Cavern in the Hope Valley on Saturday when a member of the group slipped and suffered a serious head injury. Edale Mountain Rescue was called to help, as were ambulance crews, but the man was pronounced dead at the scene.
3 people have been injured after a car crashed into a bungalow in Killamarsh near Sheffield. Emergency services were called to a property in the bungalows off Sheffield Road shortly before 11 o'clock yesterday morning. 2 women in the bungalow, aged 64 and 43, suffered leg injuries and were taken to hospital. The 61-year-old man driving the vehicle suffered minor injuries and was treated at the scene.
You're watching Calendar. Still to come tonight. Catch him if you can. We meet the Sheffield teenager tipped to be the next racing sensation.
And a lot of fine weather around today before the rain arrived, but it's National Pet Day, so that makes everything all right. Lots of wind and rain. How long is it going to stick around for? All the details coming up.
And the ITV Evening News continues at 6:30 with more on the junior doctor strikes. Here's a look at what's happening with Mary Nightingale.
Coming up in the programme, the longest ever walkout on the wards. Junior doctors are on strike with no sign of the pay dispute being settled as the government calls union demands unrealistic. Security steps up in Belfast ahead of President Biden's historic visit to mark the 25th anniversary of the signing of the Good Friday Peace Agreement. And the performance troupe blazing a trail for dancers with disabilities. Do join me for those stories and more at 6:30.
Mary, thank you, we will. Now, whether it's flooding or indeed last year's wildfires after that record-breaking summer heat, do you remember that?
Certainly do.
The effects of climate change are often in the headlines, but the impact of all that on young people is often not talked about, and now there's a warning that it's leading to an epidemic of climate anxiety.
Yes, new research has found that 1 in 3 young people in Britain are scared, sad or pessimistic about climate change. It's a sad statistic, isn't it? In fact, some students in Barnsley have told us that the issue is now part of their daily life, as Amrit Birdie reports.
Climate change is a concern for many of us, as scientists warn the clock is ticking on saving our planet. But for many young people, this concern has grown into climate anxiety, with 7 out of 10 under 25s actively worried about climate change and its effects. This group of young people from Leeds City College say climate anxiety has become part of their daily life.
It's a problem that's not going to go away in any way until we solve it. It's more of a when than an if, so it's something that I think about a lot, and it's worrying, yeah.
I do find it quite scary with all the changes that are happening.
It's probably the biggest threat to our society, Earth, right? So I think everyone should be worried and trying to take steps to minimise our impact.
A new poll by YouGov reveals 1 in 3 young people in Britain are scared, sad or pessimistic about climate change. 1 in 4 said these worries mean they're considering or have already decided to have fewer children than they would otherwise like. And less than 1 in 10 said they felt they had any influence in making decisions about climate change.
Young people are growing up at a time when so many of them and their friends are struggling with their mental health. A huge factor in that is how disempowered they feel, how alienated from society, and how they don't feel listened to on some of the big issues that matter to them. Climate change is a huge one of those.
The research was commissioned by the Woodland Trust, who believe one way to help tackle the problem would be to create more green spaces, like a natural health service.
It's getting people out and being able to benefit from both the physical and mental well-being that you come from being out in nature.
The Young People's Forest is 400 acres of new trees, individually planted by young people in the hope of creating a connection to nature for future generations. Elise White was one of the volunteers and says being involved with the project has helped alleviate some of her climate anxiety.
Obviously, there's no doubt that the climate crisis is ongoing, and places like the Young People's Forest here, we're planting trees for our generation and for future generations, so we'll see that difference. But it's also about the teamwork and the groups that we come out with, so they can grow up with the forest and know that they're actually making that difference, not just sitting back and watching it happen.
The government aims for every household to be within a 15-minute walk of green space or water, and they told us they're improving green spaces in over 100 urban communities. But without urgent action, many young people fear their climate anxiety will get worse, as the impact of global warming affects them the most. Amrit Birdie, ITV News.
Well, it's time for some sport now. More legal wrangling for Leeds United.
Xero accounting software. Sponsors ITV Regional Sports Report.
Well, Arif joins us in the studio now. Evening, Arif. It sounds like there's a bit of a headache then for those in the boardroom at Ellen Road.
Yeah, that's right. A real headache for the hierarchy at Leeds United because they've been ordered to pay this man, Jean-Kevin Augustin, £24.5 million for breach of contract. Leeds took Augustine on loan back in 2020 with an obligation to buy him if they were promoted to the Premier League, which they duly were. But Leeds didn't want to sign this striker, and after a ruling from FIFA, Leeds had to pay German club RB Leipzig £15 million last year. Now Leeds have been found to have breached his contract, but the club are appealing the decision. Finally, from me, there was a full fixture list in the Football League yesterday. There are only 3 winners from our region, though, with the big winners of the day being Sheffield Wednesday, who returned to the top of League One. We start the roundup, though, with Sheffield United's trip to Championship leaders Burnley. Going to newly promoted Burnley was always going to be tough, but when your goalkeeper gets sent off after 17 minutes, it was an uphill struggle for Sheffield United. Burnley made the man advantage count in the end, winning 2-0. Despite having 21 shots, Norwich couldn't find a way past Rotherham keeper Victor Johansson. He pulled off a string of saves as he earned the Millers a valuable point on the road. Huddersfield Town's resurgence under Neil Warnock goes on. Despite squandering a 2-goal lead to draw with Blackburn, the Terriers remain outside the relegation zone. In League One, Sheffield Wednesday returned to winning ways in style. Dennis Adanarin's double helped them to a 3-0 win over Accrington Stanley. Barnsley did their automatic promotion hopes no harm, beating Shrewsbury 2-1. In League 2, Bradford City have found form at the right time in the season. Their win over Sutton means they're now unbeaten in 10. Mansfield are a point outside the playoffs after drawing with Rochdale. Hiram Boateng's opener was cancelled out by the league's basement boys. Doncaster looked to have put an end to their losing run against Grimsby, but the Mariners had other ideas. Now Maher equalised with 5 minutes to play before George Lloyd scored a 96th minute winner. Doncaster now winless in 6. And Harrogate battled back to earn a point at Leyton Orient. Anthony O'Connor started the second half comeback before George Thompson made it 2-2, and that's how it finished. Another busy Easter weekend of football as we get to the business end of the season.
Certainly has been. Arif, thank you very much indeed. You really got a feel for those Scunthorpe United fans.
You do indeed.
Let's hope they can turn things around over the next few seasons.
So, fingers crossed.
And they're hopeful, aren't they?
They are, which is positive.
Yeah.
Stay
all right.
positive,
Thanks,
that's
Arif.
the key. Now, let's stay with the sporting theme and the rising star of the motor racing world from our region. Now, of course, I'm talking about 16-year-old Rowan Campbell-Pilling. He's from Sheffield and he's taking the karting world by storm.
Oh, yes, he is. He's been impressing experts, having won a multitude of trophies, and he dreams of one day competing in Formula One. Now, Rowan has been talking to Matt Price during a practice session.
Rowan Campbell-Pilling makes this look like child's play, and at only 16 he's already one of the best in the business.
Try and carry as much speed through the corner as possible, use the brake, you can't get around corners too fast otherwise you'll spin. Be considerate to the car and try and get back on the power coming out of the corner as early as possible.
You know, everything feels so much faster.
He's been on the track since the age of 5, climbing up the ranks, but is now turning heads in the senior championships. It's tougher, more tiring, more testing too.
It's a big, big step up. There's about probably 2-3 seconds of lap time difference, so that is massive in racing. The tyre's different, so you've got more mechanical grip through the corners.
Rowan is one of a handful of young drivers in the country, also testing for Formula 4. He's racking up the mileage at circuits around the UK, all while keeping himself in tip-top condition.
So I train 4 times a week, roughly, if I'm racing at the weekends, if not more. Try and stay as fit as I can be in peak fitness all the time.
Driving these karts takes tremendous skill and coordination. They are driving just an inch off the ground at speeds of up to 70 miles an hour. And he's got the support of loyal fans who are cheering him on from the sidelines.
Karting is relatively short races, so you know we don't have tyre changes and fuel stops and things like that. But so it's all about making the kart work and getting the best out of the kart from when the lights go to green.
Rowan says his main focus is to win the UK Senior Championship in his first season. But he dares to dream, one day hoping to secure a place on the podium in Formula One.
That has been my dream since I've been probably 5 years old, since I first got my first kart. So that would mean the world to me.
Rowan is ready and raring to climb the racing ladder, talented, determined, and earning the respect of those in the sport too. Matt Price, ITV News.
Oh, he is definitely one to look out for. And remember, you saw him first here on Calendar.
Certainly did. Well, it's time to see Emma now, where the weather's taking a turn for the worse.
Good visibility on the horizon. TUI sponsors ITV Yorkshire Weather.
Hello there, hope you had a good Easter. It's looking rather unsettled for the rest of the week with showers or longer spells of rain and windy at times too. We had lots of photos today, all of them before the rain arrived, or most of them anyway, but this one certainly sums up the feel of the next 24 hours. Poppy and Amos there on National Pet Day, which it is today, and that of course makes everything all right. And as we move forward, as I say, it's going to be very unsettled this week, less changeable at weekend. It's going to be cold until the weekend and really feeling chilly tomorrow. Certainly wet and windy this evening and then turning a bit drier later on in the night before the winds peak again tomorrow late afternoon and evening, the same sort of times as they do today. So here you can see the wet weather sweeping through, pushing northeastwards during the rest of this evening. Quite gusty out there. However, the winds do tend to ease a little bit later on compared to what they were like today. There could be some winteriness at height, and behind it as skies clear there. Once the main system moves away, you can see that with those clear skies and slightly lighter winds, there is the risk of a touch of frost in one or two spots. Into tomorrow, quite a fine start to the day, but the showers do keep coming. They could band together at times, making it feel like we're actually seeing more persistent rain. Again, there could be something of a wintry nature about those at higher levels, but nothing that sticks when I say this about the wintriness. Maybe 1 to 3 centimetres of snow over the very tops, but it's not going to hang around. And look at those temperatures, well, 8 or 9 Celsius, but with 20, 30 mile an hour winds at the coast, slightly lighter inland, but still quite lively winds, it is going to feel more like just 2 or 3 degrees above freezing. Then still possibly a few wintry flurries around over higher ground overnight into Thursday itself. And for Thursday, there could be some hail and thunder in heavier showers. Bye-bye.
TUI sponsors ITV Yorkshire Weather.
Thanks, Emma. Well, that's all for now. Don't forget, it's actually National Pet Day today.
Is it?
Yeah, so you have to give your pet a hug.
I don't have a pet.
Oh.
Hug yours for me, will you?
2 hugs for George, the dog.
Lucky George. I'm back at 10:45 this evening. Thanks very much indeed for watching. Mary's following shortly. Bye-bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Oh, George.